everyone. Our music is better than. We're better at everyone else at taking the American ideals of greed and unfettered capitalism.
I've had Korean people stop being cool with me.
A guerra virtual que está acontecendo entre o Sudeste Asiático e a Coreia do Sul. O Brasil e alguns outros países está alinhado ao Sudeste Asiático nessa guerra virtual. Só que essa não é a primeira vez que isso acontece. Falaram que isso também aconteceu em um outro evento na Indonésia e que eles não respeitam. E aí começou a levantar essa questão de que os coreanos se acham um país superior em relação aos países do Sudeste Asiático.
It's almost every country against South Korea. South Korea's won. They are fighting for their lives, bro. This is so bad. It's so bad.
First and foremost, I'm Korean, and I want to apologize to any Southeast Asian person that's ever been disrespected because of their race.
Hey guys, Sean here, and welcome back. Social media is currently on fire. The feud between South Korean netizens and ASEAN countries is escalating, and honestly, there's no end in sight. It all started as a typical debate over concert rules, but the vibe shifted instantly when racist remarks began to surface, attacking the very identity of a nation. This isn't just a Southeast Asian outcry anymore. It's becoming a global stand, with countries like Brazil even stepping into the ring. But to understand why this is happening, we have to look past the surface, because you never know how deep this hole goes. Everything started with what happened at the Day 6 concert in Malaysia late last January. A technicality that should have stayed within the venue walls ended up exploding into an international crisis, all because of the egos clashing on social media. The issue was simple, but the fallout was fatal. A Korean Fansite was caught sneaking in a professional DSLR, which is a big no-no for Malaysian promoters. When local fans whose view was blocked called them out, the response wasn't an apology. Instead, it was an air of entitlement, a vibe that they were somehow above the rules. This is where the cultural disconnect begins. In Korea, fansites or Hommas are often given a bit of a pass. They believe that by capturing high-quality shots, they're basically doing free PR for the idols, helping them grow. To them, the lens is a tool for the artist's success. But for the Malaysian public, a rule is a rule, period. When that fan site posted an apology that felt more like a "you're welcome for the photos" post than a "sorry for breaking the law," it hit a nerve. It wasn't just about the camera anymore, it was about respect. The tension didn't stop at the border. When Indonesian netizens saw the drama unfold, it triggered a collective memory of a bitter experience, the chaos at the Golden Disc Awards in Jakarta not too long ago. Footage of certain Korean fans being aggressive toward local security in Jakarta started resurfacing. It painted a picture for the ASEAN community, a pattern of behavior that felt like guests coming into a house and refusing to follow the host's rules. Now, let's be real here. This isn't about an entire nation. We're talking about a specific group of people who failed to realize that every country has its own sovereignty and its own way of doing things. But on the internet, nuance dies fast. What started as a critique of one person's actions quickly spiraled into a war of generalizations, fueled by defensive and often toxic comebacks from both sides on X. The spark in Malaysia and the old wounds in Jakarta eventually merged, creating a perfect storm of sentiment that was just waiting for a reason to blow up. So, how did Indonesia end up on the front lines? The turning point was when K-Netz started dragging Nona, Indonesia's rising global girl group, into the mud as a target for ridicule. The comments got ugly and racist, fast. Some K-Netz started calling them a palm oil plantation group or mocking their visuals based on extreme standards. It wasn't just a critique, it was a full-blown attack on the identity of Indonesian talent and their fans. For Indonesians, Nona represents a new wave of local pride. Mocking them felt like mocking the nation's potential. That was the moment the digital army mobilized. But this time, they weren't alone. The Philippines and Thailand were quickly drawn into the fire because they were facing the same insults. K-Netz started labeling ASEAN countries collectively as poor nations who were supposedly begging for Korean content. This generalization backfired hard. Regional solidarity just exploded. The Philippines, with their long history of digital clashes with Korea and Thailand, still sensitive over the treatment of their own idols in the K-pop industry, joined forces. This birthed a new powerhouse, the netizens, or SEAblings. They didn't just retaliate with insults, they fought back with cold, hard facts. They started dissecting the systemic racism that's sometimes hidden behind the glitz and glamour of K-pop. For your information, during these debates, the term KBS kept popping up. For those who are confused, we're not talking about the Korean TV network. In this context, KBS stands for Korean Beauty Standards. These standards were being used as a weapon by toxic netizens to shame anyone who didn't fit the porcelain skin or specific facial features they worship. This obsession with physical perfection became the main fuel for ASEAN's anger. Using beauty as a tool to diminish someone's worth was the final straw. It turned a fandom drama into a war over human dignity.
Southeast Asians are beefing with South Koreans, and as a South Korean, when I hear you guys say, oh, Koreans are racist, capitalist, greedy, class obsessed, starved for white attention, Western attention, pick-me-shas, obsessed with money, obsessed with power, obsessed with climbing the political and social and work ladder. We consider ourselves supremacists. We are better than everyone. Our music is better than. We're better at everyone else at taking the American ideals of greed and unfettered capitalism and completely losing our souls. So much so that we have let our country be taken over by corporations and conglomerates that run. Corporations like Samsung and LG completely run the country and the nation, and that's why our presidents have always been crooks and criminals, and that's why some of them even unalive themselves and bring in witches into the blue house. You know what I say as a Korean? You're right.
To be fair, we have to look at this from the Korean perspective too. We need to understand that they grow up in an environment with crushing social pressure. In Korea, being perfect isn't just a choice, it's a survival requirement. On Korean online communities, there is a strong sentiment that the global backlash has been incredibly painful. Many feel their cultural identity, including the extreme dedication of Fansites, is being misunderstood and painted as purely toxic by outsiders who don't see the full picture. We have to validate that the pressure of being Korean is insane. They live in a hyper-competitive society where outward appearance often dictates their social success and career trajectory. When ASEAN netizens strike back by mocking Korean features before plastic surgery, for many Koreans, that's a deeply personal attack. It hits them where it hurts, their lifelong struggle to survive within their own societal standards. We also have to admit that ASEAN netizens aren't exactly clean in this war either. Plenty of racist slurs and insults toward Korean history have been typed out by some of them, which is honestly just as bad as how it all started. So, this isn't a story of villains versus heroes. It's a story of two groups who are both hurting, both feeling like their identities are under siege, and ultimately, both losing control on the internet. There are many rational Koreans who are deeply saddened by this. They hate racism as much as we do, but they feel it's unfair when their entire nation is branded as evil just because of a few anonymous trolls on X. They feel the world only sees the end result without understanding the mental toll they pay every day. Their defensiveness often comes from a place of exhaustion, of being constantly judged by global moral standards they didn't ask for.
This Korean and East Asian beef with Southeast Asians is fucked up and it needs to stop. First and foremost, I'm Korean and I want to apologize to any Southeast Asian person that's ever been disrespected because of their race by a Korean or East Asian person.
Understanding this pressure is vital. It helps us move past the shouting match and understand the root cause of why they're so sensitive to outside criticism.
Back in H Mart, and SEAblings are cooking Korean. And I can't even say that I'm surprised, because one thing that I have absolutely experienced is the animosity that exists between specifically Koreans and a whole lot of other people in the Asian world, but specifically the Asians with skin that is very close to mine. I've had Korean people stop being cool with me.
This conflict eventually caught the attention of the international audience. But why did Brazil and Western countries jump in to defend ASEAN? Because this touched on a much larger narrative, the global fight against discrimination. Brazilian netizens started showing support because they felt a shared struggle against digital racism. They saw this as a stand against the superiority complex that developed nations often project onto developing ones. In this war of words, ASEAN netizens had one lethal weapon: their fluency in English. This made their arguments far more digestible and easier for the global audience to support compared to the Korean side. Then, the issue of cultural appropriation entered the chat. International netizens accused parts of the Korean music industry of constantly borrowing from black culture while still harboring racist attitudes. This put toxic K-Netz in a corner, facing the heat from the entire world. Western netizens are calling this phenomenon a digital massacre. They were shocked by how organized the Southeast Asian bloc became when under fire. It's a new era where a nation's economic status no longer dictates who wins a debate. This solidarity proves that racism is a common global enemy. The moment one region is attacked with racial slurs, other parts of the world will feel that sting and send in digital reinforcements. But behind the victory of these arguments, we're seeing how terrifying the internet becomes when it turns into a battlefield. Hate spreads faster than facts, and sometimes the truth gets lost in the roar of the crowd. This conflict reveals a new power dynamic. ASEAN is no longer just a passive audience. They are key players who can shift the global narrative whenever they choose to unite. Interactions between nations on social media now resemble political diplomacy, except it's much wilder and completely unfiltered.
I gotta start minding my own business, bro. Tell me why I'm on Twitter and I find myself in the middle of a war zone between the Southeast Asians and the South Koreans. And this ain't no ordinary war either. No, this is a massacre, bro.
Economically speaking, the K-pop industry is playing with fire. They are heavily dependent on the Southeast Asian market. Their biggest YouTube views and Spotify streams often come from the region: Indonesia, Thailand, and the Philippines. If this anti-Korean sentiment continues to swell, major agencies in Seoul will face a real crisis. Alienating your largest consumer base is a disastrous business strategy for the future sustainability of K-pop. This is an expensive lesson. Globalization isn't just about selling albums or concert tickets, it's about having the humility to understand and respect the ethics and boundaries of other nations. K-pop agencies now have to start educating their fan sites to be more mindful when traveling abroad. A nation's reputation can be tarnished by just one individual who feels they are above the local law. On the flip side, for netizens in Southeast Asia, this incident shows the power of their voice. But this power must come with responsibility, ensuring they don't become the same kind of racists they're fighting against. The relationship between South Korea and ASEAN is a mutual symbiosis. Fans love their work, and the industry needs these nations to stay relevant. This connection must be built on equality, not a sense of superiority. These digital scars might take a long time to heal, but hopefully, this becomes a turning point. A moment where both sides learn about mutual respect and both learn to embrace inclusivity. Ultimately, K-pop is a universal language that should unite, not divide. We need more bridges of communication, not higher walls of hatred. Let's end the comment wars and start building a new kind of respect, because at the end of the day, we're all just humans who want to be valued. Ultimately, this digital war proves that popularity requires responsibility. For both sides, this is a painful reminder that pride must never come at the cost of mutual respect. K-pop is meant to unite, not divide. Will the industry learn from this, or is this just another cycle of hate? Leave your thoughts below, respectfully. Because if you're still watching this, maybe you're looking for the same thing I am.